Welcome to FutureX, the podcast where we look to solve the variable that is the future of Web3. Every week, we'll talk with some of the brightest minds in the blockchain and Web3 space, from top investors to founders and builders, paving the way for a decentralized world. So what is the future of blockchain? What will Web3 look like in 2050? Let's explore together.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Dear DeFi community, Web3 degens, welcome again to our FutureX session. My name is Matt. I'm a partner and chief strategy officer at SynFutures. Today, our guest is Arjun from Mantle. So Arjun heads the ecosystem function for Mantle and is one of the earliest builders here. Without further ado, I will pass this to Arjun, right? So Arjun, can you very briefly introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure thing, definitely. So first thing, thank you for having me, to Matt and the SynFutures community. So again, just to quickly iterate, I'm Arjun Kalsy. So I've been in technology throughout my life. I've had leadership roles in many different types of technology, including, blockchain, of course, and Web3, but also in AI and a host of other tech. The journey for me in down the rabbit hole started in 2016 when I was looking at many new types of technologies at the time, AI, machine learning, and then I was researching, and I came across the Bitcoin white paper, right? And I read it, and I didn't get it, so I read it again, and I read it again, right? And at some point it clicked, and it's not so much about the payment side, but this whole idea of decentralization, of what it means, for us as human beings, what it means to the world in terms of economics, I think. And this is kind of what really fascinated me. And that's when I decided that, I need to figure out a way to make this my career. Like, this is what I want to do. Now, during that time, I took a bit of a detour. So I joined a computer vision startup in 2017. We were sort of building technology and tooling for self-driving vehicles. So Neuro, Uber, Lyft, like these kind of companies. And then, we ended up exiting that company. The founders sort of exited. I kind of moved on from there as well, and that's when I got the call from Sandeep, who was building Polygon at the time, right? And a very small team, just like about 20 odd people in the business team. It was basically me and Sandeep, right? So I thought there would be like some
Wow.
the full stack business team, marketing engine. So I said, yeah, how many people are there? It's like, bro, it's you and me. So I said, oh, okay. Interesting. So it was really like starting a lot from scratch, which is, I think something which which was a lot of fun, really enjoyed. It was a wild journey, building out all the teams, going out there, getting the adoption, so all the different business teams, developer relations, ecosystem, wallets, exchanges, infrastructure, then talking to funds, raising the round. And then, sort of then started talking to big, Web2 enterprises, many of whom, Polygon, when I was at Polygon, we were able to successfully convert. So it was a wild journey. And I think, I got a really good insight into ecosystem building, or I think, I would say the Web3 way of thinking. And then, I was, I think at Polygon, to an extent, we already had a large team, a large structure, a huge amount of adoption, funding. So I think all the tick marks were there. So I was kind of thinking about, what's the next challenge? Like, what do I solve next? And that's when, I sort of came across the Mantle project. The folks reached out to me. I flew out to Singapore, met some of the team members, and I got a sense that, there's, we could build something really special here. And that's when I sort of came on board. And actually, I came on board pretty recently. Like 4th of Jan is my official joining date as head of ecosystem at Mantle. And then, I've been tasked with essentially building out the entire ecosystem, and then, all the different parts which will go into making the ecosystem great.
Yeah, thanks. It's like you can have your youth a couple of times, right? So now you're young again. I wish, I could do that, every time. When I reach 30, I come back to 20, young again, in a new project, start building everything from scratch. Yeah, that feels good. Yeah. I know it.
Feels good, man. Feels good.
Feels good. And you're currently heading the ecosystem function right here at Mantle. Can you tell us a little bit more about your role here? And then, if anything that specifically you look to develop, or any goals you try to achieve, let's say now you're ready on board?
Sure, definitely. So I think ecosystem is a pretty broad word. So let me try to explain it in, let's say, Mantle's context, right? So what is Mantle, right? So Mantle is an Ethereum L2 scaling solution. So we're building, using roll-up technology. We want to essentially build, the best-in-class infrastructure. Our testnet actually came out last week, so I'd love it for the community and the builder to just try it out and even give us feedback. We brought several new innovations to to the fore as well. But Mantle at its heart is also a BitDAO incubated project, right? And BitDAO is the largest DAO in the Web3 space, and this has always been interesting for me. Right? When I met the Mantle team initially before I came on board, that blockchain infrastructure companies typically start super centralized, right? And then they start building. You build out an ecosystem, it becomes decentralized over a period of time, and then it becomes a DAO at some point in the future, right? Similar to how Ethereum is now becoming, where decisions are taken via governance. Here, the future state has already been achieved, right? There's already a decentralized entity taking critical decisions.
Yes.
In fact, it's the
Started from a
community which
DAO. Yeah.
started from a DAO. So it's like working backwards, right? And I found that approach like really fascinating. And the more I thought about it, I felt that I more and more feel now that this is the best approach in some sense, right? You know, Unlike technology, which tends to scale, let's say, vertically, right, in a stack, um, DAO scale horizontally, right? Or DAO becomes stronger and more powerful when its community size increases, right? When, let's say, the number of people participating in governance, sort of increases. So, because DAOs scale horizontally, I think DAOs are especially well suited to ecosystem building, because that's what you need in ecosystem. You of course need depth, but you need a huge amount of breadth, right? You need a huge number of users. You need a big number of builders. So those support structures are already there thanks to BitDAO, right? And BitDAO has got a huge amount of capital, which we want to then start deploying on Mantle, and we want to use the Bit token, a Bit to as gas fees, right? Thereby creating incredible utility for the token itself, right? So not only can it be used for governance and to channel literally the largest on-chain treasury, but also it would be used as gas fees, as the ecosystem token. So in all the DeFi projects, all the gaming projects, all the different tooling. Also, it would be used as staking in the infrastructure side, and ecosystem wise, I've got Mantle the chain, I've got BitDAO the DAO, I've got all the companies which BitDAO is invested in, so all of their communities. There's also Bybit the exchange, which seeded the DAO with literally multiple million users. Then there is Mirana Ventures, the venture arm of BitDAO, which is a fund of funds, like it's an LP in some of the biggest funds in the space. We also have other companies like Yeehaw Games, right, which is building mobile-focused Web3 games, and has a huge community already. So there's already a huge community here, right? And using Mantle, we want to essentially take this entire community together, move it forward, and help, BitDAO realize that dream, right, of becoming the largest, most dynamic community, right? The kind of community which creates the most amount of impact when it comes to taking Web3 forward. So that's kind of the plan, broadly speaking, right? And I have to now orchestrate this plan.
Orchestrate
right?
is the right word. It is the right word. Yeah.
Yes. We're a DAO, my friend. I cannot control anything.
Yes.
The community is in control, right? I'm an instrument of the community at the end of the day. So I have to work with all of these different founders, all of these different bodies, find middle ground, and figure out a way in a very decentralized and a collaborative fashion of how we can move forward, and then really like accelerate the space, and bring in new users, bring in new developers into Web3. So that's kind of the plan, and that's my roadmap at Mantle.
That sounds like an awesome plan. Yeah, and I knew the BitDAO team from the very early days, and I know it's a very lively community and diverse community, right? With also
100%.
a lot of good users as well as capital. I kind of feel the community is there, and now with Mantle, right? You kind of have a different layer to get people to work together, not only on the more on the governance side, but this now on the product side, right? Because they're like you said, there's so many projects now kind of already in your plate, directly or indirectly, right? And now
100%,
they got
100%.
With your orchestration, yeah, they are gonna come and deploy on Mantle, so that these projects actually like work together on the product side, right? So that's That's
100%.
fascinating. That's fascinating. And that's something I think a lot of the L2s didn't really have, right, in their early days. Some of
Yeah,
them
I,
don't
I would
even have
say,
today.
yeah, I would say that. I would say that. I think that's what, makes like Mantle very special, right? So technology
Mm,
aside, like if I have to give you a brief thinking into our roadmap. So again, the entire BitDAO treasury is on Ethereum, right? So we're very Ethereum aligned to the values of Ethereum, which is why when we looked at infrastructure, we wanted to build a layer two, a roll up chain. Now, our testnet is optimistic rollups, but our researchers internally are also like, in close contact with all the ZK rollup teams, right?
mhm,
Over a period of the last few months, last 6 to 9 months, we've seen ZK rollups also continuously improve, very quickly to the point where, some might say that the delta between optimistic rollups and ZK rollups has reduced a lot, right? And that ZK rollups may finally be viable in 2023 or in production grade and decentralized systems. So we're studying, all the best technology in the market, and it's a commitment from our side to bring the best in class, and put that in front of developers so that we can see like interesting kind of solutions come out. But you brought forth a very interesting point, which also makes Mantle very special, right? The fact that you know most ecosystems have to start from zero, right? But luckily,
mm,
I already have a jumping off point, right? I already have a large community. I already have access to a large amount of capital. I have an exchange working with me. I've got a venture arm working with me. At Mantle, we'll be putting together another $150 million fund to invest in our ecosystem. So resource-wise, like very well settled there. Big community to call upon, when it comes to building out the ecosystem, getting access to projects, builders. And if you look at on the business side, right, like I have the wherewithal to take a project all the way from, let's say, you know, zero, right, all the way from zero to product to grants to funding, and if the
mm,
project does well and shows promise, like it's a high potential project, all the way to listing. And this is something which
mm,
very few ecosystems have. I think the only other one has which has this kind of power is maybe Binance, but then they have other stipulations for projects to
right.
do so. So I think we're a lot more decentralized. We're a lot more developer focused, project focused. So I think we can put together something very compelling for builders who are interested in using the best in class technology, and also for entrepreneurs looking to accelerate projects all the way from zero towards mass distribution. So I think this is what makes
Mm,
Mantle very exciting. And also I wanted to actually point out another small red herring here, right, which is very interesting. Like
yes, please.
I'm funded by a DAO, right? The funds which I get, like, so we're going to put out a proposal in front of the DAO. So I didn't want to put a proposal first. What we felt is we should deliver something and then request the community for funds. So the testnet is out, it's running, the projects are deploying. We already have over 500 smart contracts deployed. More and more projects are
Mm,
coming on a daily basis. So we've shown the community that the intent is there. Now I'll be asking the community to vote and give me funding, right? This is very different from every other blockchain out there. You see, I don't have
mm,
VC and bag holders breathing down my neck asking me every day, when moon, like I don't have those problems because we are working with the DAO, right? Like
mm,
I don't have that pressure on me. Like the only pressure on me is to build long-term value, is to build an
mm.
inclusive and diverse ecosystem, is to build structures where builders have the highest chance to succeed. Like that's the only stress which I have. So I think, the motivations at Mantle are something which are very aligned to the values of Web3, to the values of Ethereum, and which is why I feel that, just this culture of thinking is going to help us, give us a big edge when it comes to, succeeding as an ecosystem, as a chain, and as a community.
Awesome. Eh, Look, Arjun, I think that's honestly it's a very rosy picture. Yeah. Now I'm gonna ask the tough questions. Yeah. It's a bear market. Yeah, like it or not. Yeah. And then you are one of the very few projects, I would say large projects that are going to launch in a bear market. Yeah. Um, what are some of the risks, yeah, you see doing this? And may I know also why or how are you mitigating these
Got it.
risks?
So, okay, so there are two ways to think about this, right? So one is, let's talk about some of the risks, right? So yes, it's a bear market. But I would also say that, when you're looking to build a project like an ecosystem for the long term, then, cycles don't affect you that much. Like, we've seen up and down cycles before. We will see them again, and we will continue to see them, in the future. We see this in capital markets as well, right? There are always these cycles. So, when you're launching something for the long term, when you're building something for the purpose of enabling builders, like, cycles actually don't matter, right? What matters is that the best support structures you can bring to market. And, I would further argue that bear markets are exactly when the builders need the most help, right? This is when all the VCs are sitting pretty on their money. They don't want to invest. Like, people don't want to deploy capital in the market. It's difficult for builders. So I think that, so this is my contrarian opinion, that I was like, when the builders need you the most is when you need to stand up for them, right? See, ultimately, the objective of BitDAO is not just Mantle or Game 7 or ZK DAO. It's to take the Web3 ecosystem forward, right? It's to be able to help, work together and be able to achieve that vision of Web3, of mass adoption, where we've got hundreds of millions of users using Web3. So that's why, like, I feel that bear markets, for projects is the best time to build. Is possibly a good time to launch. And of course, for us, when we look at our launching strategy or our launch strategy, like, we're not looking at market cycles. What we're looking at is the tech ready? Do we have the structures in place? Has the DAO given us the go ahead? Like, these are the most important factors for us, not let's say market cycles. Because if you start designing around that, then you're not building for long term. In terms of some other risks, which we're beginning to see in the market, is, of course, governments have become increasingly hawkish, right? We might see different kinds of, let's say, legislations, right? And we've seen legislations tend to be iterative in nature, where the first legislation is almost always bad, right? And then governments, tend to, like, realize, oh no, we're killing an industry, and then we need to fix this. So this is always the case, right? So which is why the onus is on projects like us, community voices like communities like SynFutures, to engage with some of these representatives, either on social media or in person, and try and explain to them that, like, maybe the loss of faith which you've seen over the last 6-9 months with exchanges like FTX and all, or Alameda and all of that, like, that's not necessarily Web3, that's Web 2.5. Like, you still didn't have your private key. The funds were in a centralized pool being orchestrated by, like, it's almost like running like a centralized corporate company, right? On chain, nothing happened. Like, on chain, what we've seen are some technical problems, right? Like, for example, some hacks, because, like, on bridging, etc. And technology problems, the best thing about technology problems is that they get solved, right? Tech continues to move ahead with time. So that's why, like, these technology problems we see with hacks, etc. I feel that it'll be more and more difficult now, knowing all the knowledge, with all the knowledge which we have, and with the advent of technologies like ZK, to do these things, right? And so technology will solve some of these, like, problems, but, like, government policy is something which is going to take time, and we have to accept it, right? And we need to have this mindset of working along with these agencies, right? See, we're all in it together. Like, I feel that there is also this opinion in the Web3 space where it is us against the world, right? It's either our way or the highway, right? And we cannot do that. We need to have a collaborative approach. We need to work with governments. We need to educate. It's hard, it's tough, it takes time, but we need to do this because, we're passionate about Web3. We want to see this technology succeed. We want to see a decentralized future. And if this matters enough to us, then we need to be able to put in this work and work with the authority. So those are some of the risks I see. But, like, in terms of, like I said, our build strategy and our launch strategy is agnostic to cycles. Like, we are focused on how we can help the builders in the best way possible, and that's what guides our line of thinking.
Thanks, Arjun. On the second point you mentioned, where the regulator is going to come, and then we also need to work alongside with these regulators and agencies. I cannot agree more with you on that. We always have this vision that in order for DeFi blockchain technology to go to mass market, there must be a way where the business meets the regulators somewhere in the middle, right? Rather than, like you said, my way or no way. And
answer is
probably
always in the middle. Yes.
Yeah, somewhere in the middle. Probably 2 years ago, right, when things were still early, probably some of the I'll say more degen type of people may want to do their own stuff without being interrupted, or without actually talking to these agencies. But things have changed. and things continues, changing. So yeah, actually, we actually went to DC last month to actually talk to some of the
Oh,
international regulators. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah.
and it's a good time that they actually wanted to find out something, some solutions that will solve the FTX problem, right? One
Absolutely.
way or another,
Absolutely.
I think the regulators also understand, offering crypto as a financial services is similar to financial services. But then if it comes to blockchain technology, comes to DeFi, it's a different animal, right? It's transparent, and user hold their own assets, with protections from embezzlement and from like mismanagement that we've seen, like in some of the in the FTX case. So yeah, I think this is the right time. Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. And then I also like the way you mentioned, right, the building roadmap and the plans is cycle agnostic. Yeah, that I do think you guys, Mantle, also have a, like, I would say, have more blessing than a lot of the other tools, right? Because
I won't argue with that. So.
you already have a token, and you already have like a DAO there, so you don't have the pressure whether, oh,
Yes.
this is a bear market. What if I have a TGE, and then after that the token price went right, or how would I support
We've seen
this?
that in
How
the
would I?
market, right?
Yeah,
So many
exactly.
chains
We're
don't have tokens and they don't want to launch it. It's pretty obvious, right? Because maybe not the best time. And like I said, that's the advantage of being at Mantle today, is that there's this jumping off point already. And from here we can only grow stronger. So but yeah, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I mean, very good. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, moving on. So we'd like to also understand from you, right? What's your views on the market? What are your views on some sectors like DeFi, NFT, etc.? Which one you think, will not survive, or will be really hot in the next bull cycle? What are your views on?
Our views on the market are always tricky questions, but again, I would maybe spend a little more time on talking about maybe projects and and what builders can do,
Yeah.
which I think is more to my expertise than I'm certainly not a crack trader, or like so I think we've seen cycles before. What we've also seen, interestingly, with crypto markets, is that now the correlation with capital markets is a lot higher than it was previously, right? So this also brings a level of predictability into market performance. I would not say it's like 100% linked. Already rumors abound. I think just last night with the DOJ announcement, we saw wild swings in the market because of equal parts information, equal parts misinformation. So there's still a lot to be done there, but there's a correlation there. And even with capital markets, like almost every pundit out there is predicting some sort of Armageddon, right? And in some sense of the way, so companies are laying off employees. The default option which governments like or the US government always had, which is to print more money, is no longer an option because inflation is high, right? So how do you solve, like, all of these problems are happening at once? Like, how do you solve for something like this? Is incredibly difficult. Governments and policymakers have their work cut out to figure this out. But in terms of what I expect to see, right, in terms of adoption on the Web3 side, is that definitely I feel NFTs are going to have a big part to play, right? So I remember when I was in Polygon, right, and we ended up closing Reddit. Like the team used to talk to us about PFPs, etc. And at the time I used to think, PFPs, I don't know, man. Like, surely we have to offer something better, right? Reddit PFPs are going to smash it, right? There's 6 million, I think, from NFT hold. I was completely zapped, right? And this is so important, right? Because I was completely zapped, it forced me to think. Like, it showed me that, I don't know enough about the ecosystem, right? This is the, like, I think, this is the best and the worst part of Web3. Continues to surprise you every day with, what's going to happen. So when I saw that, I kind of realized that, when you start following crypto Twitter, right? Crypto Twitter becomes your world, right? You start to think this is what matters, right? And all of us are so happy just talking amongst ourselves. Like, there is a huge world out there. of people who,
Mm.
number one, haven't even heard about this technology. The ones who've heard have never tried this technology. And we need to start, being more inclusive, to start getting new users, new developers into this space. And NFTs, gaming, like these are, the vehicles you can use to do that, right? And this is
Mm.
exactly how people like you, me, and even so many in the SynFutures community would have started going down the rabbit hole, right? You buy your first crypto, you get your first NFT or something, but then you ask yourself, right? Okay, now what? Like, what do I do with this? And then you start, going deeper and deeper. So, which is why I feel that for mass adoption to happen, like NFTs and gaming have an extremely pivotal role to play, right? And what I also feel is that with gaming, especially, you'll get the younger generation, like Gen Zs and
Mm.
possibly even beyond into Web3, right? And this is like, this is the new generation which will define decentralization for us in the future. So it's important we get them into this early, so that we build the kind of future we want to see. So I think NFTs are very important that way. In terms of DeFi, also, I'm actually kind of bullish, because what has happened with the bear market is that protocols which don't have, or rather, let me put it this way, protocols
Mm.
which are not acting like genuine businesses, basically protocols not generating fees, not generating any sort of revenue, are essentially dying out, right?
Mm.
All the pump and dump schemes gone, like all the tokens which would have utility gone, right? And I think in some like sense, it is good for the ecosystem, right? Because now, investors, users, builders, DeFi degens are asking the right questions, right? They're asking, how does this protocol generate fees? How does the token value accrual work? How do you use the
Mm.
token in this protocol, right? And these are the questions we should have been asking all along. But now, like, these questions have become more important than ever as liquidity, starts to dry up a bit. So I think I'm incredibly bullish for DeFi. I think what we will see now with so much innovation around options, around futures, like the products which you guys are building at SynFutures, around perps, around other like LSDs, etc. Like I feel when I read about protocols, the first thing which they talk about is how they're going to generate fees, right? And this
Mm.
is just for me like the most bullish sign that we will see more sustainable DeFi. We will see projects which are going to last longer, which will have more, let's say, circular token economies in some sense, where the token has utility, has use, it continues to accrue value, and so I think it's good for DeFi. I also feel that many institutions, etc., will try to also start, getting into DeFi. Like for example, people who trade bonds would want to liquefy them, right? You can increase the velocity of the instrument. You can maybe then layer in additional, let's say, risk potentially, for people who want to do that. So we will see some capital sort of typical capital market financial instruments start making their way on chain. Now, and along with like ID style solutions as well, right? Where you can do KYC, where you can prove source of funds. So I do feel that DeFi is going to see a transformation for the better. We're going to see new entrants enter the space and new kinds of financial instruments come on chain. So very bullish there as well. So I think yeah. So I think as a protocol, even at Mantle, like we've got a work cut out for us. Like we need to focus a lot on gaming and NFTs, of course, to bring in the
Mm.
public. But then we need to also spur this innovation in DeFi. Like when I talk to DeFi projects deploying on Mantle, literally the first question I ask, how are you generating fees? Like what's it do? I ask the same. I ask all the right questions, right?
Mm.
And then you see, that this is how you build, the right kind of projects. Obviously, it's a permissionless protocol; anyone can deploy it. But we want to take these high potential projects and figure out ways to accelerate them. Which leads to like a better future for all of us, right? And a better ecosystem, which continues to create value versus like Ponzi-nomics. So yeah, so that's kind of what I see. Um, and just to round out the thought, like in terms of cycles, it's difficult to time these things. I wish I could have figured this out. I would just go and put positions like, but 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 I think I think capital markets also need to recover. I think the economy is globally by no means some economics expert. So I'll just take a very layman sort of thinking around this. But I would just say that it does feel that the economy across the world is at some sort of precipice. Where a disproportionate number of good decisions now need to be made by governments and policymakers to ensure that we don't end up with some sort of really bad sort of recession type of scenario, right? What we've seen in 2008. Possibly even something worse than that, because there you could print money,
Mm.
now you can't do that either. So I think once capital markets also tend to, once they start recovering, once we see new kinds of value creation, that's when I also expect to see a Web3 bounce back. So
Yeah, I think, like you said, the general correlation with like larger capital markets when is there already, right? Since the last cycle. Before last cycle, crypto is relatively independent, but now, it's really correlated with the rest of the asset class, especially on the more risky side of the asset spectrum. So, but the good part is we're getting more and more adoption, and we're flushing out lots of like the Ponzi-nomics and the tokens without any utilities. These things. So we'll have a very healthy bull cycle, to come. Arjun, before we let you go, may I know, I mean, as a tech person, right? You have a tech engineering background. What is, let's say, what's the latest like technology you follow or you think will give a big change to, well, either to the crypto Web3 world or the world? Yeah.
So again, like I, just like many others, I've become fascinated with Chat GPT-3, right? So prior to joining Polygon, etc., I was in an AI company, right? So always been very fascinated by the space. I've been following it throughout, and what I see with Chat GPT-3, like and with the impending Chat GPT-4 rollout over the next let's say a few months, is that AI is going to make a big comeback, right? And this has great ramifications even for us in Web3, where I want to see, like, and this is something I want to actually promote in the hackathons we'll be launching for Mantle, is how blockchain developers and Web3 developers can leverage AI, right? Now, if you go through YouTube, on Twitter, there's several ways. Like you can take this chat interface by OpenAI can write code, like it can write smart contracts, right? Then it can help you write test cases. It can help you sort of solve many other problems, right, on the technical side as well. At the same time, it's also a great chatbot for for interacting with the community. So I think by adopting AI in some sense in the Web3 space, like we'll be able to make this better. Like I sometimes feel that, like when we read about protocol hacks, like in DeFi, right, protocols get hacked because of economic attacks, right? Sometimes, like more often than not, of the in the last few months, I've seen economic attacks, not necessarily technology hacks. Like there was nothing wrong with the
Right.
code. It was just that the way the pools were balanced or the way the liquidity was being provisioned, right, there was some edge case which just somehow missed everybody, and predicting and solving for these economic attacks is extremely difficult. But with the advent of technologies like AI, right, it's possible to now do better simulations, right? It's possible to do large amounts of simulations and now protect and create mechanisms or be able to predict or solve in such a way where you're able to even like think through these economic attacks, if not maybe solve them, but at least have some sort of features in place which suppose this edge case comes about, like there's a fallback mechanism which doesn't allow you to drain the pool and exit liquidity. So I think when it comes to designing more fault tolerant kind of dApps and ecosystems, especially in DeFi, right, where in so many of these protocols, there are so many different variations of what can happen, what cannot happen, so many different tokens being, being requisitioned, swapped, staked, unstaked, used as collateral. Using, having a technology which can, in a very short period of time, think through hundreds of thousands of use cases and be able to give you, surety, or at least to a very high, let's say, confidence interval that the protocol is now protected against economic attacks, bodes well for the ecosystem. So I feel that this is something which could really be very interesting for Web3, for DeFi, and would help builders build faster, because already Web3 sometimes is difficult to understand for the average developer, right? You need to understand decentralization, resource allocation, within blockchains. This is a very different, like decentralized compute operates differently from centralized compute. But yeah, like I feel with AI, we'll be able to build better, we'll be able to test better, we'll be able to deploy faster. You can bring projects to market faster. In gaming, for example, you can create worlds generated by AI. You can create characters generated by AI. We already see that with all of these avatar creators. So now for games, it's much easier. to get. And if you're trying to figure out what game should I make, what should be the storyline, just ask ChatGPT 3. Like I did that. I said write a story about gaming with sci-fi. Where the protagonist is from the medieval. Like I gave it a really complex. Like it gave me like a story. Like of the backdrop. I was like, wow, this is great. Right. And why this is important is because once you solve these problems right around technology, then the focus comes back on the user. Focus comes back on the value generation, right, which you're doing out there, right? Like for a game now, a game cannot be about graphics or like characters, and it has to be about fun, about engaging gameplay, right? DeFi protocols have to be about value creation because now you can't regale people with some interesting technology. So that's why I feel that, with better AI, we can build better, we can test better, we can deploy faster, and essentially, bring a lot more focus back to the user and value creation. So this is something I'm like super excited about and stoked about, so I'm waiting when GPT 4 comes out, right? And what that's going to look like. So yeah, so that's what I've been following in the space.
Thanks, Arjun. Yeah, that sounds very inspiring, actually. Yeah, to see how potentially AI can help the Web3 business, right? And not only do things more efficiently, but so now the builders can get more focused on the value creation part, the users. Yeah, that's very good. It's very good to know. That sounds like a couple of other like unicorns gonna come from there. Yeah, on the Mantle ecosystem.
Well,
yeah,
definitely that's the plan. So
yeah, that's the plan. Yeah, awesome. Arjun, yeah, thank you very much for your sharing today. So we're gonna close today's FutureX session, and we're gonna later share this video to our audience on YouTube and other channels. And then we'll also bring back additional questions for you. So, thank you very much, Arjun.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And, just before signing off, I'd again say, that the testnet is out. I'd love for the SynFutures community to try it out, look at some of the tech innovations, give us feedback, right? So that we can build a better network and go to mainnet faster. So I'm, again, like, thank you for having me. I think I'm going to have a great time interacting with the SynFutures community as well in the future. And so I'm excited for what you guys also have in store for 2023 and beyond.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks, Arjun.
All right, thanks. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the FutureX podcast. Subscribe on Spotify or wherever you're listening to this episode.